Hey, welcome to Bikes, Boats, and Bivouacs. We're going to visit the Green Gables Heritage Center on Prince Edward Island in Canada. We'll check it out and see the house that inspired the book Anne of Green Gables. With us on this trip, Tim, Dawn, Al, Marie, and also Brian and Jean. All right, so we want to give you our thoughts on our trip up to Cavendish, where we stopped at the beach and also at the Heritage Center for author L.M. Montgomery, who wrote Anne of Green Gables. First, let's start with the Heritage Center, Anne of Green Gables. What did you think of that?
Oh, I was so glad that we were able to fit that in, and it was a nice day to spend learning about her life and her works.
A number of years ago, I co-authored a book with two of my colleagues, so the writing process and the way authors develop things has always been of interest to me. And my dad also put a book together, he's a writer. So this really was a great place for us to check out, and we enjoyed digging into history. We're a little geeky that way, and of course, Maria as a librarian has always had a strong interest in print material. The Heritage Center is great. It gives a lot of background on her and how she developed her career. The inside lobby of the Heritage Center. In the Heritage Center, you'll find information on the lifespan of Lucy Montgomery, who wrote Anne of Green Gables. And then when you went outside the Heritage Center, the first thing you came to was a barn. What did you think about that barn?
They had on display the time period, the fashion of the time period, and it was very enjoyable to see and read about the history of clothing.
Yeah, so they had clothing from that time period. I believe some of that was from the family, so it was there. And the other thing, and I never would have seen this, I never would have noticed this without Big Al with us. He worked quite a bit as a truck driver and with farms. And in the barn at the top is a railing for a hay bale mover, so that you can hoist the hay bales up and move them up top.
Oh.
I never would have seen it without him pointing it out. It's just another one of those little kernels of information that you miss if you don't have someone really knowledgeable with you. So I was really glad Al was with us.
Oh non, un petit peu si tu veux. Non.
I guess they have to have that roof that steep with all the snow, huh?
Yeah,
that's
and
such
the hay tracks up in here so they could take the hay down and drop it in
Oh yeah,
more.
I would have missed that.
This was rebuilt.
Yeah. And then once you walked past the barn, you saw the home, and it's really kept in beautiful shape by Parks Canada.
Right.
And inside you saw the rooms as they were back when L.M. Montgomery would spend time there.
Right. And the stove was interesting. There was a lot of information provided regarding the stove that they use for warmth of the house, as heating the house, as well as cooking food.
And baking.
Cooking and baking.
So this was not an inexpensive stove for the time, but it had a chamber where you could smoke meats or bake bread.
Mm-hmm.
So it was really neat to see that in the kitchen and to see the bedrooms and all.
Gotta go from that side and go through the hall.
Is there a bus ride or something?
This is the house that inspired Anne of Green Gables, owned by her family members, extended family. The farm was actually the home of David Jr. and Margaret McNeil, who were cousins of Montgomery's grandfather. The farm was first settled in 1831 by David McNeil Sr., and although Lucy Montgomery never lived there, she grew up nearby with her grandparents and spent a lot of time at the farm with her cousins, and it is what inspired her to go on and write Anne of Green Gables. As you can see as we tour the house has been maintained in a time-appropriate manner. So the furniture and the furnishings and the wallpaper is how it would have looked back when she was alive and inspired by this area. Random with planks. Most of her novels were based in the Prince Edward Island area, meaning that's where she drew inspiration for those books. I think one of her books was a setting outside of Prince Edward Island.
It's the new wall number 2.
I had never seen one like that.
It was built in Sackville, New Brunswick, and patented in 1876. So it was built for coal, but because we are on the island, we don't really have a source of that here. So probably would have just used wood here, unless you're really wealthy and you can have it shipped over.
As we climb the steps, you can see the very loud wallpaper that's on the walls, typical of back then. And the bedrooms upstairs really do represent the way they would have looked at the time when Lucy Montgomery was alive. Lucy Montgomery died in 1942 and was buried in the Cavendish Cemetery, so she remains in the area. And the government of Canada immediately recognized the importance of her and erected a monument to her. Parks Canada has done a great job at restoring the farmhouse and revitalizing and rebuilding the barn to the appropriate time period, and it is for all to enjoy. You could smoke meats in there or do bread in there in a ceramic container. The fire would be down in there. Here's the back of the house. And then once you went through the house, you could see the pretty gardens around it. And there were two pathways. One was more interesting to us than the other. What was it called?
Lover's Lane?
Yeah,
Right. Lover's Lane.
Lane. And why was that such an interesting pathway for us to walk?
Well, because this is where L.M. Montgomery received her ideas and her character development.
I thought you were going to say because the two of us have been in love for a long time. But apparently...
Yeah, almost 40 years.
That's secondary.
It went over my head. That went over my head.
But yeah, Lover's Lane is where L.M. Montgomery developed a lot of the characters for Anne of Green Gables, but also many of her other books, she worked the characters out walking down that lane. And I remember struggling with a component of my book, and I was on the riding mower, and when I finally figured out how to put it down in writing, I was so in thought I ran into the pine trees with the tractor. So the Lover's Lane would be a lot safer if I would have had that instead of the tractor.
Right.
But that was really neat, and there was another area where you could walk all the way to another property that they were involved with.
Something about a grave site. Right?
Yeah, there's an old grave site down
It
there.
was haunted.
Yeah. I remember I had to figure something out on the one we wrote, and I was on the tractor cutting the grass and I went right into the pine trees because I finally figured out how to demonstrate it in the book.
Okay.
So that's why this thing, you know, this is her spot like that where she figured it out. Or for me, it was just cutting grass.
Everybody has their place of the muse.
I can see why she liked it here.
Yeah.
Flowers. Do you know what that flower is?
I like it here. It almost looks like a wild rose.
There's a little stream by Lover's Lane. What do you think, Marie?
Oh, it's a great experience to be here walking where the famous
L.M. Montgomery.
Lucy Montgomery
Yep.
was inspired to write her famous story, Anne of Green Gables.
Yeah, and this pathway, Lover's Lane, is where she worked out a lot of the characters in her other books.
Yes, so
It's a pretty cool place.
I feel really, really lucky to be here.
There you go.
Thank you, Scott.
So when we left there, the home that L.M. Montgomery actually lived in when she was born was along that way back to the campground. So we stopped there and got to see the home she actually lived in. So we got some video of that. So here's where she was born. So this is where Lucy Montgomery was born. This map at her birthplace depicts the interesting places in Cavendish that she was associated with. And then we headed to the beach.
Right, we went to the beach.
So Cavendish Beach, another Parks Canada attraction. Right on the Gulf, the water was relatively chilly compared to the south of the United States. But we did get in, we got our feet wet, so we were able to, you know, get that North Atlantic chill. And the beach is very accessible for people with mobility issues. And there were several beaches that you could kind of walk to from the parking lot. And a nice big parking lot there. It even had a snack stand. At that snack stand, I remember seeing lobster roll and like, you know, pulled pork sandwiches and that kind of stuff. So it wasn't just candy and frozen treats. You could actually get a lunch there if you wanted to. But we had a good time there too at the beach. It was a nice way to spend time. We've made it to Cavendish Beach, Prince Edward Island. There's the building, and we'll walk out that little walkway and see what the beach looks like. So on the way to the beach, there are several beaches. You can go to the ocean view off the Sound, and you would use this path to get out there over this water dune. Really pretty national park up here in Canada, Prince Edward Island. And if you notice on this sign, they have a trail, but they also have a campground. But I don't believe there's any hookups at that campground. Very interesting property. This is Cavendish Beach, Prince Edward Island. How cold's that water, Brian?
Not bad. No colder than a lake back in PEI.
Woo! Oh my goodness. There's my feet in the water off of Prince Edward Island. There's Tim in the water. It's already chilling my bones and my feet, Tim. Okay, here we go.
Put the music to it.
She's in. She's in. Jean's back in for a second time. Hey, if you enjoyed this video, consider subscribing to the channel. It's free, it helps me out a lot. So ring that bell, you'll be notified every time I put up a new video, and give the video a thumbs up. That helps it be seen by a wider audience. But more important than all that, go have some fun out there. Hey, thanks for watching.